Hi everyone, it's Lisa from Lisa's Creative Corner. Today the creative design team is going to be sharing some fun ways to use alphabets on your projects. Be sure to check out the creative projects the other design team members have also. I'm going to go ahead and post links to their videos along with links to the products that I use for my projects down below. Today we're going to make these two cards using Close to My Heart's classic alphabet thin cuts dies. The first card is this fun shaker card with the little stars on the inside. And then all the pieces that pop out from the letters on that first card we're going to use on this second card. We're going to start off with a piece of cold pressed watercolor paper, and I cut this piece down to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 to create the 5 by 7 card. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a little watercoloring, and instead of a paintbrush, I'm going to use the medium flat water brush. You just fill the barrel with water and you can squeeze it when you want to add a little bit more water to your project, and that way you don't have to use a separate bowl of water like you would with a regular paintbrush. And so I put a little water on this paper first, and it's kind of a neat technique because when you put the water down first and then you put the color on top, it blends nicely and it just stays within the confines of where you originally put the water. So I'm going ahead and doing a little rainbow effect here and just tapping the color on and letting it blend together. And I use a tissue or a paper towel to dab off any extra. And if you get a little spot that you don't want it, or if there's too much water. And so once I'm done with adding my color, then I like to do a little speckle effect. And to do that, you just tap the end of your water brush and it gets little dots kind of around the edges, and it gives it more of a true watercolor effect. So now I'm going to go ahead and set it aside to dry, and once it's dry, then I'm going to go ahead and mark the center of the page here so that I know where to set my my O, because I want to do the O first since that's going to be the center. So I got my pencil mark in there that I can erase later. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Cuttle Bug and die cut the O out first, and make sure that you save the center of that O as well, because you're going to need that later. And then using that O as a guide, you can go ahead and cut an M on each side of it. You can measure it if you want to. I just tend to eyeball it. It's a handmade card. Nothing's going to be perfect. So I went ahead and I cut the M's and set those aside because you're going to use those later on the other card. Now we're going to go ahead and use the stamp of the month for May, which is called Time to Celebrate, and we're going to stamp a sentiment on the bottom. And you could use the Happy Mother's Day if you wanted to use it for Mother's Day, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the Love You on the bottom, because that way if I don't use it for Mother's Day, I can use it for another special day for my mom. So you want to make sure that your paper is as flat as possible, and use the intense black ink. It will be much less likely to smear if it is still damp at all. It shouldn't be. You don't want to stamp on it if it's damp. But go ahead and put the foam piece from your stamp set underneath to give it a little bit of cushion, and ink up the stamp and go ahead and line it up and stamp right underneath the center of the O there, and that'll give you a good guideline to try to get that as centered as possible. And then once you have stamped your sentiment, you're going to go ahead and start building the shaker portion of the card. So go ahead and flip your stamped piece over onto the back, and then we need to put something over the the letters that are cut out to cover them up so that the little shaker pieces we put on the inside don't fall out. So one of my favorite things to do is use our page protectors. Close to My Heart has really high quality page protectors. So I went ahead and cut one of the 12 by 12 page protectors, because that's what I had on hand, to a 2 by 6 inch piece. And we're going to go ahead and adhere it on top, on the back, using, I'm using the Close to My Heart tape runner. And what you want to do is do as much in the little nooks and crannies as you can with that tape runner. You want to go ahead and get it nice and covered with the tape runner, and then place that small piece of the page protector on top of the adhesive, and when you flip it over you have a nice clear covering, but you can't see the messiness on the back. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and place the O into the middle, and if you haven't erased the pencil mark yet, go ahead and do that. And then using the tape runner again, just go ahead and cover the back with the tape runner, and then go ahead and place it right in the center of the O. You want to make sure that your colors are going the right way. If you have, like I have, a little bit of the yellow and orange on the bottom right, you want to make sure that that doesn't go upside down. It might look a little bit funny. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use 3D foam tape all around the word mom so that it creates a well for us to, that will just hold the glitter pieces that are going to be on the inside, the little shaker pieces. So the nice thing about this tape is that you can just tear it. You can also use our non-stick microtip scissors. Those work really well with this adhesive, and it doesn't make the stickiness doesn't stay on the scissors. So go ahead and make sure that when you put that all around the word mom, that you don't have any openings, that it's nice and tight around the edges, because otherwise your little glitter pieces, the shaker pieces, are going to fall out. So once you have that all around the word mom, then just fill in some of the gaps with some small pieces, because you're going to want the whole piece to pop off. And don't worry, no one's going to see this messy side once you put the card all together. So go ahead and finish that off. And then what I did next was I cut a piece of black cardstock for the cardstock base. It's a 5x7 card, as I mentioned earlier. So you're going to want to cut your cardstock to 10x7 and score it and fold it in half to create the 5x7 base. And then the next thing we're going to do is take the anti-static pouch and just add a little bit, just kind of dab it on, so that the silver star confetti pieces that we're going to put on the inside won't stick to the plastic on the front, and won't get very staticky. The anti-static pouch is great. You can even put it into the bag and shake it up to help with any static that might be in there already. You might also want to take the static pouch and kind of dab it along the edges of the foam tape that you have as well, just to get off any stickiness that might be in there so that the stars don't stick. So go ahead and sprinkle as much as you like of the stars on the card base. You don't want to put it on the other piece, because when you turn it over they'll fall everywhere. So just go ahead and put it in the center there, and then you're going to peel off all the adhesive on the backs of the foam tape that you have, and you're going to place it right on top of the card base so that it traps those small pieces of star glitter on the inside there, and then push down really well just to make sure it's nice and sealed. And there you go, you have a fun shaker card all ready to give to Mom for Mother's Day. So now we're going to go ahead and make the second card, and to create the card base for this card, I took a piece of leftover black cardstock from the first card, and I cut it down to 11 inches by 4 1/4 inches and folded it in half to create a standard card, which is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. And then I cut a piece of white daisy cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm going to go ahead and emboss it with Close to My Heart's new quilt embossing folder. I love this folder. It's just so beautiful, and it's simple, but it's fun. And so I went ahead and embossed that, And I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the front of the card base that we created. And I'm using the tape runner because it's just a great way to adhere that piece that has all of those little nooks and crannies in it from the embossing, and it helps it stay flat better than a liquid adhesive would. So now I'm going to go ahead and use some of the thin 3D foam tape to adhere the die cut letters to the card front, and I'm even going to make some of those pieces even thinner to fit the smaller sections of the letters. And if you use the non-stick micro tip scissors, again, it's great for cutting this and not getting the adhesive stuck on the scissors. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere the O first so I can get my center, and then I'm going to adhere the top and bottom M, and that'll give me just a good way to measure. And again, I'm eyeballing it. You can measure if you want to, but I'm just eyeballing it. But starting with the O always helps. So now we've got the most of the card done, and we just need that center piece. And I'm going to go ahead and use another one of the sentiments from the Time to Celebrate stamp set. And this time I'm going to use a scrap piece of that black cardstock, and I'm going to emboss it in white. So I cut a strip that's about a 1/4 inch thick, and I'm actually going to go ahead and use my Versamark ink pad and stamp. I'm going to stamp 3 of them just in case I don't get it centered, or if they all 3 come out great, then I'll have some extra for another card later on. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some white embossing powder on top of the stamped Versamark images, and I'm going to heat set it with my heat gun until it melts. And then I'm going to trim a little piece, and I'm going to make the corners little dovetail just to give it a little bit more interest, and cut some small pieces of the thin foam tape and put it on the back. But I do want in the center there, I'm going to add one more layer of foam tape just because the O is already popped up. So if by adding another layer in the center, it's going to even it out. And I'm going to go ahead and add that, and now my card is done. And so now we have 2 fun cards, and all we needed to do was die cut the 3 letters, and we got 2 cards out of it. Be sure to check out the rest of the projects from the design team, and you will surely be inspired to create some projects using the alphabets. Thanks for watching today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.